Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Captain's Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Captain Morgan. On today's episode, we have an amazing guest. He is an entrepreneur and fear coach. He is a former Navy Special Operations commander. Also, he's an author of Your Secret Superpower, Tame Fear to Thrive, and he's been a guest on multiple podcasts, including Barbell Shrugged, the Good Eye Podcast, Cultivate Wellness, and now the Captain's Lifestyle. Please welcome the Fear Sherpa himself, Brian Muka.
Hey guys, honored to be here. Thanks for having me, Taylor. I really appreciate being here. We have an interesting way that we met, don't we?
Yes. Well, actually, I heard you on the Barbell Shrugged podcast, and that's how I started following you. And then, you actually followed me back on Instagram, and I was like, hey, what a fantastic opportunity to form a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So for the people who don't know much about you, your background, what you do, you want to give a little bio about yourself?
Yeah, right on. So, oh man, this story starts back at Drexel University. It was a Navy ROTC midshipman. And man, I was dead set on running nuclear power plants on submarines because when I was a kid, I wanted to be a steely-eyed missile man, like Werner von Braun and all these explorers, that traveled at Godspeed, right, faster than the Mach numbers. And man, I just as a kid, I read everything I could have. So my sophomore year of college, I took a submarine ride with the USS Olympia. Essentially, I lived in a clock in excess of 800 feet underwater with no sunlight and realized for my lifestyle, I need the sun. I didn't know that I had seasonal affective disorder then. That's a kind of a story, but something I needed to watch, right? I need sunlight. I need fresh air. I need ocean. I need sand between my toes. So I was quickly cured of the desire to run nuclear power plants underwater. That was out. And so for a while, I didn't know what I wanted to do in the Navy. And that same year, I had a class advisor named Sean Simmons. He would invite me to something called EOD PT. Those are two acronyms right in a row: Explosive Ordnance Disposal, Physical Training. And I was like, this is before I believed in myself. And I was on the cycling team in college. I enjoyed weightlifting. And I'm like, sir, I have no business joining a special operations PT. Like, I'm not that good of an athlete. He goes, you get on your bike and ride 50 miles like it isn't a thing. You deserve to be in this group. And so, he would beat the shit out of us. And I loved it. Right? I loved the way it sucked. I love the camaraderie that it made. And I don't know if you've ever done these, with your force recon background, sun gods forever, like hundreds of sun gods and burpees. And I love the way it sucked.
So I got to interrupt you right there. I was never force recon.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What you're referring to is I tried out for the recon screener. I was actually a machine gunner. So just to clarify for everybody out there.
Gotcha, man. My apologies.
No worries.
My dad was running some training at Lockheed Martin. He had this Navy commander come through. He asked, hey, what does your son want to do in the Navy? He said he wants to be a bomb technician. He goes, I'm running a summer cruise for Naval Academy midshipmen out of Norfolk. He should join. And I spent 2 weeks at EOD Group 2. I would jump out of helicopters. We would blow up flare pods from F-14 Tomcats. We would do dive casualties. We would PT. We would ruck run into solving improvised explosive device problems. I was hooked. And you know what I wanted, Taylor? I wanted to earn a green rigger's belt. Right, the mark of a true operator. Yep. And I could just go to the exchange and buy one, right?
It's not the same.
No, I wanted it to be issued. I wanted it to be earned. And so my fourth and fifth years of college, I had a single point of focus. I wanted to forge myself, and I forged myself into the best military athlete that I could have with CrossFit. That's how I discovered CrossFit. And, I concentrated on my grades. And I don't remember partying. That's what I wanted to be. And I remember sitting in a management information systems class. And my advisor, Lieutenant Shapiro, would call, Brian, you got it. I couldn't hear it. Brian, you got it. Sir, I still don't understand. Brian, what about you're going to be an EOD officer do you not understand? And Taylor, here's the thing, man. I didn't believe it. It was too good to be true, right? And that thought virus. And you have my permission. If you ever are in the same place as me, and if I ever utter the phrase, I can't believe it, punch me in the mouth, right? That's me not being impeccable with my word. So fast forward, I'd make it through dive school. I was in excellent shape. I'd go through EOD school, which, when you consider the physicality and the intelligence needed, top 3 hardest schools to get through in the military. And I would earn my explosive ordnance disposal crab. I would become a bomb disposalier. And I could never believe it. And I let my imposter monster run my life, right? There's 2 parts of fear. There's terror, right? That's the thing that pulls you off the explosion, off the X, right? Gets you to safety. Like, oh, how did I happen? I blacked out, right? And then there's worry. Worry is using that same powerful imagination that athletes use in visualization to manifest everything we don't want in our lives. That which we focus on grows. And what I focused on was not being good enough, right? So here I am, physical specimen, graduated with an engineering degree, not thinking I was smart enough to be able to do this. And what it was I didn't believe that I was a warrior, right? And I would sit at these tables with folks that operated with the SEAL teams. My seed daddy, my mentor, he worked at DevGru. And after he would leave as a readiness and training officer, he would go back to be a Navy commander at SEAL Team 6, and he saw something in me that I couldn't see yet. And it would take until this year, having separated from my wife at the time, to realize that I've always been the warrior that I sought to be. And part of the reason, I didn't really believe it, I'd sit around at these round tables, right? Like these knights, right? These hardened, forged snake eaters. I'm like, I was Tony in West Side Story, right? I was first air trumpet, first tenor, I was captain of the sailing team. I'm not like these guys. And they're way more badass than I am, but holy shit, did I have heart and grit. And it would take a long time. Well, it would take the right amount of time. Not a long time is a story, and we'll get into the language part of this, I'm sure. And as I was going through the grief of the loss of, the love of my life, I realized that as my yoga instructor would ask, Brian, how are you? And I would say, hey, Robbie, I'm going to need a minute. And I'd weep, and I would weep for about 5 minutes. I'd give myself 5 minutes to go through that. And then I would start breathing. And then I would start my Ashtanga yoga practice. And the point is I got up. And so what I learned was in middle school, I was the kid everybody made fun of. And I went back in time at the end of Strong Coach. And my friend Sarah kind of guided me through a couple things. And I went back in time and I went to go forgive them. Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. Right? Heard that somewhere, maybe in the Bible. Right? And I realized I was like, there's nothing to forgive, right? They were just kids. They didn't know any better. And maybe they were threatened by me, right? They saw something that I couldn't see. Well, yeah, there's a theme to this, right? There's the thing that I couldn't see. And I'm getting into how I became the Fear Sherpa, right? By addressing my demons and my imposter monster and my success addiction to fill a hole that I had of not being good enough, right? And so what I realized was those kids were actually teaching me how to be gritty, right? And I went from going back in time to forgive them to thanking each and every one of them. Thank you for forging me into the man that I wanted to become, right? Then there was my time in high school, just preparing to be a military officer, my time in college, working 20-hour days, military athletes, studying engineering and taking solace in polishing my shoes. I loved polishing my shoes because it was the only easy thing in my day, right? And out of college, I did the hardest possible job I could have, being a bomb technician commander, right? And that career ended before I was really ready to, and it had everything to do with the imposter syndrome, right? And again, I'm not saying this, hey, woe is me, but if it's okay for somebody who jumped out of airplanes at night and went diving when he couldn't see, it's okay to admit that you have fear. What's not okay is to let worry run our entire lives for us, right? Imagining all the worst things and being surprised when the worst things happen. It's because we focused on them. And I was determined, man, to do something about that, which is why I wrote the book. I wrote that book with my audience in mind, right? It could be that the purpose of my life is to serve as a warning to others. Don't do what I did, right? Don't let worry take the best parts of your life and wreck them. There's a Mark Twain quote that I love, Taylor. It's, I'm an old man and I've known a great number of tragedies, few of which have come true. Few of which have come true, right? And it's like people are needlessly suffering at the hands of fear. Let's do something about it. Actually, what if we were to turn it into a fuel and a North Star and a coach, right? And, you know, I was heartbroken when I left the Navy. I mean, it was my dream. It was my identity. And the smartest thing I ever did, I hired my the Group 2 mental health professional. Her name is Talia Gershon. She architected a plan to put me back together after that explosion. It's why I love the Viktor Frankl quote. She had me read Man's Search for Meaning. That book probably saved my life. Self-talk acknowledged, right? Maybe it did, maybe it didn't, but it surely had an impact on my life. That's true. And the two things in that book were suffering is never in vain if we can find meaning. It's like, well, what meaning can I find in the setback? I can write the guidebook to help people out of being buried alive by life's avalanches. And what if we can help people truly live again? Ben Franklin said most men die at 25 and are buried at 75. That's 50 years of unlived life. Let's live outrageously so death shall tremble to take us. That's what the point of the book is. That's what Fear Sherpa is all about. It's about getting back to the land of the light and the living and using love to be the motivator. I love steel mace training, so I go do it. I love training in the cold, right? Because there's bliss not only waiting for us, but that bliss that exists in the door of fear and resistance is rooting for us to choose it. And we get to step through the door. What I am is a dream stretcher and a door holder for people to walk through and realize their greatest lives. And it took going to hell and back to bring this elixir, you know, to you listening. And I wrote this book for you. I do this work for you. And initially I did it because, you know, the type of healing that a healer does is to heal himself or herself. And through the fire. And I've got this medicine I want to share with you. And I hope it changes your life. I hope you change your life with these tools, actually, is really my prayer for you.
All right. Well, good podcast.
All right. That's a mic drop, right?
Jeez. Wow. Okay. I mean, so many different rabbit holes we can go down. Wow. Yeah. I don't want to skip past your military experience because I think most of the people who are going to be listening to this are civilians and they might not understand what all goes into, especially a special operations career in the military. So you want to go into a little bit about your experience there? Because I was in the military. I was a machine gunner. I've been skydiving, not military related. I've been scuba diving, night scuba diving, but not to the extent that you've been, obviously. So maybe we could start with your skydive story. I think that's a powerful.
That's a good one. Yeah, I'll lead up to that. Just to give a snapshot, like of a typical week in the life of an EOD operator. Monday, we would work with like robots and practice remote entry into cars, right, for vehicle-borne IEDs. So we had these iRobots, and you manipulate those. So from a distance, you know, and set up charges and those things. Tuesday, we might go to the demolition range and literally blow up cars, right, to see how those explosive tools would handle and how to turn them into tools instead of just weapons. Wednesday, we could be, jumping out of airplanes and helicopters, doing helocast recovery operations where you're doing 10 knots over 10 feet over the water, and you would jump out of the helicopter and swim to your mission. Thursday, we could be at the shooting range, practicing close quarters combat and also long distance shooting. It's called smutting, using the Barrett 50 cal to take care of problems, 800 meters, 1,000 meters, so we had to be equally as good with our shooting skills. The move, shoot, communicate, where we're, landing a helicopter, have our inter squad comms, conduct close quarters combat squad type tactics. And then, we would be the asset, to handle booby traps and mines and improvised explosive devices and those things, and part of the strategy for how our teams that we supported. So Navy EOD is embedded with SEAL teams, Army Special Forces, Spec War, and beyond. to include operating with the Secret Service. And so that ties into Friday, Saturday, Sunday of a typical week. I'd have to send 2 or 3 guys all over the world to support dignitaries and support the U.S. Secret Service in keeping assets safe from explosive hazards, right? So trips to Spain, trips to Japan, all over the country, special access with just a pin. I mean, it was the James Bond lifestyle.
Yep.
One of the greatest treats, and thank you all for paying your taxes. I got to jump out of airplanes along with 30 other crazy individuals in military freefall school in San Diego. We had 25 jumps to do, 5 of which were at night. And in my life, the scariest thing I've ever done was jump out of a perfectly good aircraft at night with my rucksack, my O2 mask, and my weapon into the black inkiness of the night. And we did that as a squad. We had to land together. And we had all the equipment that we needed to operate. That was an instance of find a bigger fear. My little fear of not leaving that aircraft was smaller than reporting back to my C daddy who worked at DevGuru. His rule was if I send you to free fall school, you better graduate. I never wanted to go back in his office and say, hey, Rod, I failed. Right? That was the bigger fear. So of course I leapt out. And it was the most physical exhilarating thing I've ever experienced, jumping out with an instructor at night. It was incredible. So the next day after we graduated, we went back to the civilian side of, we were now at Skydive San Diego instead of military freefall school. And we had to do some conversion jumps. My ex-wife at the time hated the story, but I'll tell you this part too. So we had to do conversion jumps. And on the civilian rig, it's no longer a ripcord in the front. It's now a drogue chute in the bottom. Like if you were wearing a backpack, it would be the part of the backpack that touches the ground, right? There's a drogue chute in there. You throw it out and it catches clean air. Because with the military rig, it gets stuck in the burble, right? This eddy of air behind you. And sometimes the parachute doesn't deploy immediately. So you have to rotate on your back to get it to fly. So we all had to jump with an instructor to prove that we could do that. So there was this smoke show Burnett there working. And we knew that 3 of us were going to be jumping with her. And so we all put money in, and it was like, whoever gets to jump with her, you have to try and kiss her in free fall. So we're standing around as, guys do, right? And so the first guy goes, like, hey, man, how was your jump? He goes, man, it was awesome. We didn't have any of the equipment. It was exhilarating. Did you do it? Oh, I forgot. Okay. I mean, there's a lot going on. The first couple skydives, like I didn't know what I was looking at because every part of my body became a control surface. And you're learning formation flying, and it's just, there's a lot involved to the point where like there's so much input, like I didn't know what I was looking at, right? So I totally appreciated that. Second guy that went with her was like, hey, did you do it? And he just like hung his head. It's like, man, is the LT going to show you guys how to do this? So I jump out of the airplane with her. We level off, and then I do my practice 3 touches, right? And she like calls me in, and that wasn't part of the flight plan, right? So she calls me in, and I was like, all right. So I leaned in, and I kissed her face mask. I didn't actually kiss her, right? And she goes, oh my God, right? And so we landed, and it was great skydive. It was so much fun, and man, we played in the sky, And we landed. She goes, that was ballsy. I'm like, yeah, I know. She goes, you're the first student that's ever done that to me in a free fall. I'm like, cool. And so in the military, in special operations, special warfare, anytime you do something new and cool for the first time, you owe the person who brought you that experience a case of beer, right? So the first time we fast roped out of a helicopter, case of beer. First time we helicasted, case of beer. So I looked at her, I'm like, cool, you owe me a case of beer, right? And so she's laughing. I'm packing up my parachute. Owner comes out, and he's like, who the fuck kissed my girlfriend? I'm like, I don't know, man. Right. So great stories. We're having a great day. We earned it, man. This was like our victory lap after military freefall school. So there were 7 of us. We jock up again, and we get in the aircraft. You sit backwards, put your seatbelt through your straps, and the airplane takes off. And I'll share with you guys how I use breath and smile and gratitude while I tell the story. So the airplane accelerates and starts to take off from the ground. My heart starts racing, right? It's just what happens. And the difference between nervous and excited is the story we tell ourselves. This isn't Brian's opinion. This is science. So under fMRI brain scans, nervous and excited excite the same areas of the brain, and the brain doesn't know the difference. It allows us the space to change the story, right? And the easiest way to change the story is to smile. As we smile, we let our bodies know, hey, this is actually excitement. I'm excited to go skydiving, right? So we get up to altitude, looking out of the airplane. I start doing my breath work. In for 4, out for 6. I got to find calm, right? My mind's racing. I'm going through all my emergency procedures, which I'm really glad fear shows up, because it's like, if I was complacent and there was no fear, I wouldn't check my parachute 3 times. Thank you, fear, for your gift. It's the smelling salts in the coach. Go through it again. Go through your emergency procedures. And then I look out of the window, right? And I look at how beautiful the ocean is. And these badasses, right, that I may never see again because they're stationed in Italy, in Germany, and like all over the world. Like, let's take a snapshot of this memory. I have so much gratitude that I didn't have any room for fear, right? Airplane door opens. 3 of us climb the outside or holding onto the bars outside of the aircraft. The other 4 are inside the aircraft. And the jump count is 1, 2, leap on 3. There's 7 of us now falling to the earth, right? We level off. We start flying over top of each other. We're formation flying, touching different points. It's Peter Pan in the sky. Like, it's insane, right? And we had earned it. We earned the right for that passage. Baby sky gods in the making, as they say. To those that have tasted the joys of flying, you will forever look skyward, for there you have been, and there you long to return. It's a thing. Thank you, Leonardo da Vinci, for that quote. And so we experienced about 50 seconds of that. I get to 6,000 feet, check my altimeter. I pick my cardinal direction, and I Superman my way away. It's called tracking. Body accelerates from 120 to 160 miles an hour. You're no longer falling, you're flying. It's exhilarating. So I got some clean air, and I go to pull my chute. I look at the altimeter, 5,000 feet, clear my airspace, and I go to, look, grab, pull. There's nothing. No handle. Okay, that's weird. I should have looked probably. Maybe I just missed. Mind you, I'm screaming to the earth at 120 miles an hour. There's a time for me to solve this problem, right? And it's rapidly running out. So I look down, and there's no ripcord. The second time. And I was like, I tried it 3 times, right? And it was like, I was so panicked. I didn't realize that there was no ripcord. I took a breath. I didn't think about that because breath practice has been part of my repertoire. We don't raise to the highest level of our training. We default to the lowest common denominator of what we've practiced repeatedly. Thank God I had the breath, right? I took the breath. You're in a sport rig, dummy. Reach down through the drogue chute. That fully open canopy that happened 3 seconds later was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen in my life. I was below the Mexican mountains, right? I was starting to get the ground rush. I was getting so close. Another 10 seconds or 5 seconds later, my automatic parachute deployment system would have kicked out my reserve chute. I would have then had 2 parachutes open, and that's a great way to take yourself out of the gene pool based on how it unfolds. And I would have looked like an idiot and been asked to never skydive there again. You are unsafe. Yeah. That breath saved my life. Yeah. And so as I teach my breath classes, the question I always have every week is, what will you find in your breath? It could be safety. It could be calm. It could be home, right? There's a lot available. And we as a society have forgotten how to get back into our heart, especially those of us in the military, right? They teach us how to turn our hearts off. So the heart connection's off and we're completely in our balls, right? Force, fighting, all of those things. And the journey back to opening my heart again has been a scary one, and also the most rewarding adventure ever, that journey inward. Yeah.
So let me ask you this, because I've been skydiving. Does the feeling of fear ever go away? Because I went skydiving. I bought the tickets because I was scared of it. I was like,
good man.
Hey, I'm going to jump out of an airplane. And so I realized that because I was scared of it, I needed to do it. So I bought the tickets. I'm scared going up in the plane, and then door opens. It's like, holy shit, like I'm actually going to do this. And like you said, you can't not do it because the fear of regret if you don't jump is worse than actually doing it. So you you go, I did, and as soon as you're out of the plane, like everything's gone. It's just amazing. But does the fear of the anticipation, I guess, ever leave?
There's definitely that feeling. Like, I played soccer, right? So I remember, like, taping up my shin guards and, putting my soccer shoes on, right? There's that whole ritual. I'm sure, as a machine gunner, getting your 240 or your 50 cal up and running and clean and well oiled and all those things, right? There's the, we're about to go do something serious feeling. And it's like, we're going to go do something cool and serious feeling, right? As far as the physical sensation and the vertigo feeling, I never thought that would go away. At jump school, I couldn't watch the jumper before me dive out because my brain was like, you just watched that guy kill himself.
Yeah,
so I had to look at the wing.
Normal.
Breathe, smile, stare at the wing, right, is how I jumped out of airplanes during daylight conditions, right? So even as a civilian jumper, I had that fear. And this was before the divorce. After the divorce, after staring into this black chasm for months, learning how to go from being lonely to enjoying time alone, my ramp exit that I did in September I did ground school again because that had been a while. I jumped with the SEAL. I forget his name. I think it's Taylor. It was a ramp exit. And he goes, listen, you're an EOD guy. I know you went to military free fall school. This jump's going to be awesome. I'm just going to fall to the earth. You show me you can fly, just use me as a point of reference, and we'll do the jump. So we walked to I watched the first 4 people jump out through the ramp. I felt my CrossFit nanos, weren't really gripping the airplane skids the way that I wanted to. And I walked right to the edge. I put my toes over. He gave me the thumbs up. I'm like, we get to this is my fucking skydive. I knew the emergency procedures so well. I trusted myself. And at no time was I afraid. I couldn't wait to get after it. Fast forward, the month after, the goal was to be able to skydive on my book launch day. So when we launched Your Secret Superpower, Tame Fear to Thrive, I signed an autographed copy of my book, threw my parachute on, got in the airplane, and then I was like spotting the landing. Like, my head was outside of the aircraft looking for the runway. And I'm like, if I fall out, I fall out. Like, I'm good, and just, it all changed when I started to trust myself the way I trust myself when diving. So there's also a science and physiology thing that happens. That amygdala response when the garage door opens on the side of the aircraft and the 120 miles of wind comes in. It's new, it's novel, and you better be scared, right? Because when you're scared, you can focus it, right? Don't panic, but turn it into focus. And over time, we can normalize to fear. So fears that used to be very, that shut us down, we get more and more used to. I was telling my dad yesterday, I got in the ocean yesterday. I did some Wim Hof training in my silkies after my steel mace training. And he goes, why do you do that? And especially, why do you put your head under? Because Dad, it makes me panic. And I get that amazing adrenaline shot. And I take the breath and I practice getting calm as fast as possible. And there's been driving situations where something stupid happens in front of me. Adrenaline hits. I know what to do. Instead of the tunnel vision, I now see more and it's slower. So it's that fear inoculation. It is possible. So I think the more time you skydive, the more you get used to it, the more fun to fear you'll experience. But know that the less the fear is, the less the exhilaration is.
And I feel like a lot of that is, like you said, learning to change nervousness into feeling excited.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like the fact that you even get this opportunity to have that feeling, switching it up, I feel is a powerful technique. So you want to talk about how you learned or trained yourself to take that breath? Because in that situation, I feel like a lot of people, if they haven't trained the breath, would panic. They're like,
Mm-hmm.
There's no fucking ripcord, and then just freak out and obviously make the situation worse. So
Right.
How did you learn to take that breath, and how did you know that it would help you?
Yeah. So This all starts in high school. I found myself on stage a lot, right? So the list of what things are people are afraid of. Number one is public speaking. Number two is dying. And number three is money. And when you get to retirement age, running out of money is a more powerful fear than dying, right? So when I was in high school, I earned my first chair trumpet. So I was doing solos as performances. I mentioned I was Tony in West Side Story. And my freshman and sophomore year, I would get this terrible stage fright. The fluttering and the butterflies, it was nauseating, very intense. It was not a good feeling. And I don't know how I learned this, but I rewrote the story. Could this be the feeling I get before I do something awesome? And I rewrote the physical sensation into exhilaration. So that's where that started. I don't know how I started using the single breath as that pattern interrupt, right? So there's the second Viktor Frankl quote of the interview. The space between stimulus and response is our only choice, our only freedom, and it's our freedom to choose, right? The breath has become the most powerful interrupt. And I call it the wedge, increase the wedge between stimulus and response. And sometimes you only have a single breath. Chris Hadfield, astronaut, in space flight, he talks about, you have a breath to solve your problem. It's 8 seconds, right? It would be later that I would work with, I grew up Catholic, and I started learning how to pray in a Buddhist prayer circle. And my teacher would share, as you breathe in, you're breathing a new idea. And as you breathe out that idea. I'm like, all right, well, I'm trying to clear my mind. What if I hold my breath? I had some free diving experience, and I would see how long I could go without taking another breath and quieting the mind. And then about the same time, I discovered Wim Hof with Tony Robbins and Tim Ferriss. I took the 10-week course. At the same time, my language coach, Mark England, we started having conversations around language, and Mark and I started the 10-week Wim Hof course at the same time. And we have a mutual friend now. Mark introduced me to one of his friends, Brandon Powell, who's one of the top Wim Hof instructors in the world. And I started doing his certifications and his workshops. And then April 18, I did the 2-day advanced certification with Wim himself. I got to teach Wim, Don't Worry, Be Happy on the ukulele. Really, really proud day. And then in October, I would do the 5-day course, the master certification, to become a certified Wim Hof instructor. After the fact, I was able to put back in the breath technology into that single breath, really make that have the most possible traction. That's my story of treating air as a nutrient and, leveraging it to find calm, to be a source of calm, to find insights, to drive new mantras and identities, teaching people how to prevent panic attacks. And in this crazy vagabond digital nomad, let me burn every garden in my lifestyle of the past year, the breath has become like my turtle shell, my home. Yeah, there's a lot there.
So I'm imagining some people are hearing this and they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I breathe every day, every second, and I don't notice any of this. So you want to go into some of the benefits of breath, like you were mentioning, and the differences between like kind of unconscious just breathing and breathing for a specific purpose, whether that be to rest and digest, activate the sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight. You want to go into how that plays into whatever you're trying to do?
This is my favorite thing to talk about and share with people. I love teaching the superpower of breathing because it literally exists below, like right under our nose. It's been there the whole time. So if you've ever noticed somebody mouth breathing, right? Right. And I don't know if there's video for this or not. I'm moving my shoulders up and down. And as I move my shoulders up and down, my body is squirting adrenaline and cortisol. It's a panic breath. And there's some advantage of that, right? But generally speaking, for the untrained individual, that's not ideal all the time. That's the stuff that adrenal fatigue is made out, right? So let me do 3 panic breaths. Right? I'm already feeling the tingles in my hand. Like, I love that feeling. That's adrenaline. Like, I know what to do with that because I've trained it, right? And so I learned it this way. So mouth breathing increases heart rate because at a mitochondrial level, it takes 22, with one molecule of oxygen, we can make 22 units of ATP, right? Whereas when we start mouth breathing, it goes down to 2 ATPs per oxygen molecule, right? So very less efficient. We're using lactate for fuel, actually. Our power output sustained is so much better through the nose. So that's the first thing. Heart rate's affected, right? The mitochondrial level. Second thing, the endocrine system has to start working harder, right? It's squawking or squirting adrenaline, cortisol, right? So we're increasing systemic inflammation in the body. We're making ourselves sicker, right? And then when adrenaline's present, we shut off the immune system. That's 4 things that break down through mouth breathing. There's a time and a place for it, right? Mouths are good for speaking, and they're good for panic and emergency breathing purposes only. It's the 6th gear, and it's only for a short time. Not very efficient. Carbon dioxide is interesting. So in the whole breath practice, in through the nose, out through the nose. It's really good for sleeping purposes too. I noticed for a while. Now we're getting into the oxygen advantage. Taping your mouth shut. Going for a run with water in your mouth, right? Only through the nose. And it's very uncomfortable for the first 2 minutes. And then something very interesting happens. As carbon dioxide increases, we get more oxygen that we can use. So if we were 100% oxygen, 0% carbon dioxide, we would suffocate. So there's something about carbon dioxide which makes the oxygen available. And we know this is true. Actually, you can run this experiment. Next time you're feeling sleepy, drink some soda water. It'll wake you right up because it gives us more oxygen to use. There's another thing that happens too as carbon dioxide increases, and we can play with these levers. How now, brown cow? Let me take a breath. These powerful levers. So as carbon dioxide increases, so does nitric oxide. That was the 1997 molecule of the year, right? There's nitric oxide supplements that you can take. It increases blood flow. It's great before workouts. It's great during sex. There's a lot of benefits of it. And there's some health benefits of it too, right? So every year I get this postnasal drip, which used to turn into bronchitis. I'll use the oxygen bolt test, breathing in through my nose, breathing out, and then sitting with empty lungs as long as I can and letting the air hunger build up. The CO2 comes up, nitric oxide comes up, and then I'll breathe in. And I'll hold it in through my nose, squeeze against that for 10 seconds, and my sinuses open up. So do the upper lobes of my lungs, right? So I'm doing a warm-up while laying on my yoga mat. I try not to do this while I'm driving my car, but I've been guilty of that. Don't do what I do. It can get you into some trouble. So this is powerful medicine, and respect it, right? So before bed, if I'm congested, I'll do 6 rounds of that. It makes my sleep easier because I know how to leverage nitric oxide. The other thing, we got to experience this yesterday. So 1 o'clock on Sundays on Zoom, I'm doing Common Life's Hurricane. We're in the heart of this reframe of this new world that's being formed after the coronavirus blizzard. And as we breathe in a tribe, a new level of intimacy and safety is developed, right? And also we're able to tap back into our hearts, right? The breath is the best way to sync our heart to our brain, right? That's how heart math works. Imagining we're breathing through a stoma or a hole in our chest and breathing the air right into the heart, and we can measure this. Syncing the waves of energy radiating out of the heart syncs the brain waves, right? That's how heart math works. And we do that during the breath. And then it allows us to really know what's there. Follow your heart. It knows the way. And especially, one of the things I'm passionate about is teaching warriors how to get back into their hearts and let that run the show instead of the mind, right? I want to do this with investors and money. People lose fortunes when they make fear-based decisions. In fact, if we make decisions out of fear, it's always the wrong decision. changing the paradigm from moving away decisions. I had an opportunity. I was getting frustrated in my medical sales work, and I was going to change industry. I was going to start selling, insurance, not insurance, security systems. And, I was making this decision to move away instead of, I then later had the opportunity to work for Abbott Diagnostics, a powerhouse in the industry. I loved the guy that I was going to be working for. I liked the products we were going to be selling. Like, yeah, I could do better there. So that was a love decision, where the fear-based decision, it would not have been a good career move. So thankfully I got my fear under control, and, through the power of the breath. I got to work with some doctors and mental health folks who suffer from panic attacks. And so let me get that back under control. We were teaching some of the squeezes yesterday, and the ability to make bliss. These powerful levers to make endocannabinoids, endo-DMT, to have these metaphysical, mystical experiences through holotropic breathing. There's literally so many rabbit holes that we can go into the power of the breath, and it gets into the basics, right? And, I love sharing this, and I want to be associated with two things now: breathe, smile, gratitude, right? It's the key to jumping out of airplanes at night. Is the key to, safety second, right? Everybody's like, oh, safety first, always be safe. Like, no, competency is where it's at, right? Daring greatly and keeping everything under control. So breathe, smile, gratitude. And then the other thing, right, to be able to enjoy time, location, money, freedom. And I used to say, or something better. I know what that something better is now. So now it's, I possess time, location, money, freedom, and teach others to do the same. And it really all comes back to the breath. How are we, when life's sensei dares us to leave the good life for the great life, to enjoy the exhilaration, bliss, and wealth that is rooting for us to choose it? And we get to choose it with our actions. It doesn't matter what we say, let our actions speak so loudly, no one can actually hear what we're saying, right? And so if you're struggling with addiction, do 7 minutes of breath work, right? And I'll get into an example of what that is, because that's on average how long a temptation lasts. If it's food, if it's drugs, if it's sex, if it's, whatever the thing is, 7 minutes. And after 7 minutes, it's going to go away. So if you know that, you start your stopwatch, you start breathing, gives you something to do, So let's do it. Let's do a couple deep breaths together. So the key is going to be breathing in through the nose and filling the belly first, right? So let's just do that all together. If you're following along at home, stop your car. Please never do this driving. And I'm saying that repeatedly because I made that mistake and I couldn't see for 10 seconds. That was scary, and I caused it, and that was stupid, right? So don't be me. So let's all take a deep breath in, put your hands on your belly, and make your hands go away from your spine. So deep breath in, pause, now let it go. Cool. That's it, right? That's a mindful breath. And no matter how shitty the breathing is, each breath is perfect and it's waiting to delight. So if the only breathing mechanic thing you ever work on is just feeling the way the wind feels in the bridge of your nose as you fill up your belly and you let it out, congratulations. You're now, in the top 20% of efficient breathers on the planet. And you can spend the rest of your life to get that last 1%. And it's an amazing journey inward, right? So the next part of all of that, is breathing into your chest, expanding globally. So I want you to picture a cylinder. On the top and bottom are expanding up and down, and then globally. So we're breathing into our chest and breathing so deeply that our back extends. So put a hand on your chest, put a hand on your back. Let's fill the belly up first. So deep breath in through the nose. Now start filling up the chest cavity all the way. And then out. Okay. And then the last part of this, we're going to take that breath, belly, chest, and I want you to breathe in so deeply you can feel the breath going into your forehead. So put the hand on the chest and the back. Let's breathe into the belly so deeply you can feel the pelvic floor deflect downwards. So fill the belly up first. Let's breathe in, fill the chest, and then breathing in all the way into the head. And then let it go. Now we're going to do 6 of those. Let's do 6 of those together. This is the minimum effective dosage for changing 80% of your physiology. Or to say that another way, to get 80% of the benefit from breath work, you can do it in 6 breaths. On the last breath, I'm going to hold my mouth, my tongue, and resist the air leaking out. I'm going to squeeze in it the same way if I was pooping. What's another phrase? Or make your face hot. This is how I make heat when I'm in the ice bath. And we're unlocking the power of creating heat, inner fire, right? The stuff that babies know how to do, and activating brown fat, which is really powerful. So let's do 6 deep breaths. We're going to breathe in for 4 seconds, out for 6. Let's do it. Breathe in and let go. And again. Pause, let go. In, pause, and out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In, pause, and out for 6. In, and out. Last breath, in and hold. Squeeze and smile. Laugh if you need to, cry if you need to. That knocks stuff loose. So whatever comes up is proper and correct and exactly perfect. Man, you noticing anything different, Captain Morgan?
Oh yeah.
What do you notice, brother?
Just like I mentioned the first time we did this, just a sense of not needing to breathe or do anything really, just kind of being in the moment. You're just relaxed. And it's powerful. If you've never experienced anything like that before, you don't need to take any drugs, although they can for sure enhance the effects, but
for sure
you can do this on your own with nothing. And
right.
I want to, just because people who are listening might not know what you're referring to when you said the calm in the eye of the hurricane.
Yeah.
You do these Zoom calls every Sunday, and it's like you call it your breath fast, and I love that. And I attended one 2 weeks ago, and that was my first time doing this sort of focused breath work. A while back, I made the transition from mouth breathing to nasal breathing, and what a world of difference it has been. Not that
welcome.
Not that I was one of those people who was like standing around in the airport, like, but just in workouts or whatever, breathing through the mouth too much, whatever. But like you said, once you can start breathing through your nose, nitric oxide enhances or increases. And I feel like my nose has just gotten like doubled in size. I could take these fuller, deeper breaths. And anyways, now with the breath work that you lead on Sundays, it's amazing. So I had my girlfriend Brooke hop on the call this last week, and she has now created her own business, and she's in the process of doing interviews, trying to get investors, and she's been doing a lot of work. She's stressing herself out. And I always try to tell her, I was like, hey, just take some time to yourself, go in the other room, relax, breathe, meditate, do whatever you need to do, but just stop worrying about this. Stop stressing yourself out. Just take a break. And on Sunday, she had a presentation, and she wanted to prepare for it more. The presentation was at like 2 p.m. and Pacific time. And your breath fast, where we practice the breath work, was at 10 Pacific time. And I invited her because of how powerful of an experience it was for me. And I knew that this is exactly what she needed. And she agreed to it at first. And then she started to talk herself out of it. She's like, well, I have all this stuff that I still need to do. I want to prepare more. I feel like I'm not ready. And I I texted her. I was like, hey, you don't have to go to this. You can do whatever you want to do. This is your life. And she sent back like, oh, thank you. Like, she didn't even realize that she had a choice. And
Yeah.
then I was like, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And I was like, this is my way of telling you, you need to go to this breath fast. Like, you might not realize it now, but just please trust me. And
Yeah.
I was like, even if you just stay for a half hour, just see how you like it.
Mm-hmm.
And she showed up, and sure enough, she stayed for the whole 90 minutes because it was so transformative for her. And I was so thankful that first off, that you created that space for that to happen. And two, that she kind of broke through that barrier.
Yeah.
So
That's beautiful, man. And so, you and I are coaches and, influencers and those things. And that's my favorite thing, right? To see those ripples bounce off the wall and come back at these glassy waves of change, right? Of going deeper. And actually what Brooke went through, and I appreciate her courage. So Brooke, as you're listening to this, celebrating you for being uncomfortable, for being with it. And that's common. The ego will do anything that to stop things, experiences, opportunities that violate these rules: small, safe, and comfortable. So in leading these Wim Hof workshops involving cold, fighters that I've gotten to work with, they'll come up to me after the session like, thank God I came to this today. Hey, yeah, I'm really glad that you came to this today too. You don't understand. I wasn't going to come today. I didn't feel well. I was going to prioritize sleep, and I'm so glad that I came. And what's happening is the ego knows that there's going to be a little ego death at the end of this. And that's scary. It's scary to leave the old identity, right? And so in studying fear, people are like, hey, I'm scared of the unknown, right? And there's a little bit of that, right? But for our intents and purposes, you can't be afraid of everything. It's not possible. Let's just round up to infinity, right? Never leave the house. So the workable side of fear is leaving the known. And in this case, the stress, right? The not good enough's in my case, right? And there's a powerful medicine with the breath that allows us to get in a flow state. I was listening to Ed Milet the other day, and on his interview, he was talking about when we're in a flow state, that euphoria, right? I felt that in the 6 breaths. I'm glad I'm sitting down. Today's day 20 of my fast. And I can get to that bliss state very easily because my body's running on ketones currently. I like doing this for periods of time in a fasted. I'm a modified fast, right? So I'm doing bulletproof coffee, bone broth, and Organifi green. And this is one of those things that violates small, safe, and comfortable, right? And so when we're in a flow state is the only time that we can watch. We can watch who we currently are, and we can also become who we want to be. And if we're not in a flow state, we're locked in place. And when things don't work out and when we self-sabotage, we'll blame fate, but really we haven't reprogrammed our subconscious. And so the breath practice is powerful technology to understand the blueprint of how we're wired. So I'm so glad that Brooke was able to stay on that. We had another person, experiencing rage, and anger was the word that she used. And Jade, if you're listening, great work yesterday. Very proud of your work and the work that you're doing with your partner and the beautiful mirrored reflections that we're able to see when we come together in a place of safety and this rhythm of life. The polyvagal nerve is something interesting to explore. I know I'm going down another rabbit hole, but so many folks were pounding their chest in time with the shamanic drumming that I was doing to entrance the body to be part of something bigger. We have these beautiful mirror neurons, and the polyvagal theory, developing polyvagal tone helps us to be able to handle more stress, to make the amygdala calm down, because when we're in a group, we can let go further. I was working with another gentleman he did a lot of breath work, and it was stuck, at the 90-second mark. And we were in the circle. I was doing the drumming on the back of my ukulele because I forgot my drum. It was a flyaway mission, so I didn't get to have all my equipment. And at the end of it, he goes, man, I broke through today. And it's because the mind is able to shut off searching for threats. We're safe. I'm watching. I've got you. Let go. Your body knows how to do this. And when people let go, it's incredible. So we went from a 90-second breath hold to 2.5 minutes. It's powerful.
Yeah.
Powerful medicine.
I feel like a good place to go from here is talking about cold water exposure, ice baths,
Sure.
cold showers, because the breath and the knowing that it's going to be okay plays a huge role in how people tolerate the cold.
Yeah.
So I know for me, I've had some experience with cold. When I was coaching in Saudi Arabia, they had an ice bath there that I think it got to like 41 degrees Fahrenheit was the lowest it would go. And then I've gone in Lake Tahoe in the winter months, and it's just exhilarating.
It is.
But currently I just have the cold showers, take those like 3 times a day. So it's amazing. But what really helps with the cold, because a lot of people, they just have that mindset that they are never going to do it. And what helps is the breath. So you want to talk a little bit about how people can use breath work to feel comfortable in an uncomfortable situation.
So one of the things I know about cold training is I have to overcome your objections to cold, right? So
let's
people
explain the benefits.
Yes. So humans are more likely to not lose $5 than to earn $1. Okay. So the biggest objection to any change is the stay the same option, right? So if you folks in sales doing nothing because nothing's really broken, business as usual. So we have to do 5 times more than the objection in order to move through that, right? So back in the turn of the 20th century, we didn't have pharmaceutical drugs to help with people's mood disorders. Do you know what they did? They did 2 ice baths a day. There's joy in ice. And I don't mean that as a euphemism. I mean, it literally changes the serotonin production, right? These hormetic stressors, we live in such a safe and nerfed world that so if you went back into like the Great Depression, you're like, hey, I'm going to go do a Tough Mudder and I'm going to open a CrossFit gym. They're like, we're trying to survive here, right? We're walking 10 miles a day. It's cold out. We don't have enough to eat, all that. So we now have to seek out hormetic stressors, hormones, right? Cold affects hormones, right? So Taylor, you're in great physical shape. I imagine that your 3x a day cold therapy is changing your body's physiology, right? So amateurs, when you're trying to change the way the body looks, we count calories, we count grams of carbs, protein, and fat, right? And depending on our body type, we can use those as levers to change. But really what we're doing is we're changing the hormones, right? So we get to understand what the hormones are doing for us, understanding leptin and ghrelin, understand what growth hormone and testosterone are doing. We have some really powerful levers to make our bodies look and perform however we want, right? Cold and heat are both equally as powerful. And I'm a huge proponent of cold, also a huge fan of the heat stressors as well, right? So here's the rule of thumb. If you're sick, don't be cold. Go make a fever, right? Go in the sauna. If you're sick, the cold will make things worse, okay? So when you're healthy, hop in the ice bath. Turn the cold on, right? So also, not only are we changing the hormones of testosterone and growth hormone, there's also collagen production, right? So one of the things that movie stars do to keep looking young forever, they do cold treatments on the face. They're using like cryo-freeze, I forget what they're called, but like a cryo bath. What are those? I forget what they're called. Taylor, help me out.
Cryotherapy chamber?
Cryotherapy, that's it. I had the first Latin word right. I honestly think that ice baths are more effective, harder, right? Because there's an added mental toughness aspect to this. And here's also what's in it for you. So sometimes running away from fear will actually get you killed. Sometimes the best course of action is through the belly of the beast, right? Each morning when I do my mental flossing, which is my cold shower, I'm telling Life Sensei, I'm ready. I'm ready for when I flip that knob to cold, I'm saying, yep, I'm ready. I'm ready for what's on the other side of this. And I promise if you back in the days when I used to drink as a sales guy, that cold shower would put me back to life. It would change my body's hormones, right? And again, just as what will you find in the breath? What will you find in the cold shower? I promise it's 200% better than coffee.
Yep.
And in the words of Admiral McCraven, make your bed every day, flush your mind every day. And you've got the opportunity. All it takes is 30 seconds. 30 seconds of cold. Take your hot shower, get on and get clean and the luxurious shower experience. Spend 30 seconds in the cold. And then the week after, spend 30 seconds on your back, turn forward, 30 seconds on your face and your hair, right? And work your way up to the 2 minutes, but just try it. You owe it to yourself, right? If you're not using cold therapy, you're leaving a free performance enhancing supplement on the table, right? Walking, sleeping, and cold therapy. And when you get really crazy, sleep, walk, do some sauna work after your workouts. So the 2 times I don't recommend doing cold work. Don't do it when you're sick, and don't do it right after a workout, right? In fact, we want the opposite. After workout, get hot. Hot yoga is great. Get in a sauna, those things. And then later on in the day, hit your cold therapy because it'll help with the inflammation. We want some of the inflammation for muscle growth and adaptation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing that helps too, putting my head under the water. 41 degrees. I won't use the C word, right? That rhymes with old. I don't use that word in training. Here's another secret. Pain and fear travel the same channel. So the more afraid I am about a certain sensation, the more it's going to hurt. So when I'm in the cold, and especially the hands and the feet seem to be the most susceptible, that has the most surface area per volume, there's a maximum heat transfer that occurs. I'll use the word, my hands get tight. I'm feeling the tightening. And then when I get really curious, I can go into that sensation and it turns into bliss. And my body releases blood. I can will my mind to allow blood into the hands. My other cool party trick is when I'm in an ice bath and I have my sunglasses on, I can make them fog up at will based on the heat that I'm making. And so the breath practice, right? Look up horse stance, right? And that's standing in a squat position and then, forcing the hands sort of qigong style, both sides. So I'm twisting my ribs. These intercostals are our heaters, right? And as we warm that up, 20 breaths, 30 breaths, get in the shower, and really feel what that's like. You're activating brown fat, which eats white fat. Powerful stuff.
So a lot of people's first reaction when they first get into the cold shower, or especially an ice bath, is to take this sort of breath. And you want to talk a little bit about how to, first off, why that's not good, and then how to get back to the calm, focusing on your breath and not so much focusing on the cold.
Sure. So depending on our relationship to the gasp, that's something that happens, right? It's one of those, it's similar to the mammalian dive reflex, right? There's certain things that happen when our faces get cold, a heart rate slows down. That gasp, right, I don't think that's something we can control. What we can control is the amount of time to get back to calm. So in my ice trough, I would stick my head under, I'd count to 15, and I'd pop back up and notice the length of exhale when I did that. The first couple were panic breaths. That's fine, right? Get some adrenaline, right? Take dominion back of your breath. The longer the exhale, the further we get into the parasympathetic rest and digest nervous system. Okay. It's good to do this with other people too. There's a lot of power in the eye gaze. And so more on that in a second. So practice getting your physiology under control, because there's been times in car accidents, which could have been car accidents, I felt the adrenaline happen, right? And because I went from 30 seconds to 8 seconds, right? And like knowing what to do with adrenaline, now in those stress situations, the world slows down. And before, I used to get this like tunnel vision, right? I can only see my line of safety. In those periods, it's now become flow. And now I see even more, and the world slows down even further for me. It's a tremendous advantage. And I learned that through mitigating the panic in ice. And I think ice baths are an even better training tool than skydiving in terms of harnessing fear, by the way. So a really powerful tool. I want to share a story from the advanced certification in Wim Hof. I've done hundreds of ice baths at this point. I've taught dozens, right? And basically what we did was we filled a kiddie pool up with a half a ton of ice. We got down to 37 degrees. It was basically an ice slurry. It wasn't even an ice bath, right? It was more cubes than water. So we weren't allowed to do any of the warming techniques. If you want to learn how to warm yourself in ice, read the book, That Which Doesn't Kill Me. It's a great book. That's where I learned that. And then I eventually would learn more of that in the master certification. So we weren't allowed to do any of the warming techniques. Also, the horse stance is a good YouTube video from Wim, W-I-M, H-O-F is how I spell that. So I got in the ice, and I spent 15 seconds under the water. And I came back out, and I lost control of my body. I was in such a panic state. I had not experienced that in a very long time in ice baths. And it was awesome. Right. I hadn't been that panicked in a long time, and working with fear has been a thing. It's like, how do I train at a higher level? And I caught the eye gaze of Casper, who was the main instructor. And in his eyes, I found calm, and I found love, and I felt connected and no longer alone in the ice. And within 5 seconds, I forgot to shiver. I found calm. And so some of it is our own physiology, and that calm exhale. The longer the exhale, the more relaxing. The most relaxing breathing we can do is singing in a choir. We're doing it together, and we're making beautiful music. And, when we're singing, we're bringing those ideas into our conscious being. So be careful what you sing. And then the other one is hugs, right? So hugging somebody. And this is great if you're having a fight with your partner. Just hug each other and just feel what it feels like to breathe together for 5 breaths. It'll sync you right back up. You'll be back in the same biorhythm again, right? And then we don't have the ability to do that, with the physical touch. We can do it with the eye gaze. We didn't always have language, right? We didn't always have the power of the words, but we've always had nonverbal communication. And in the hugging, in the eye gaze, and breathing together, we can create a powerful sense of calm, right? So just as panic is contagious, so is calm. Let us be beacons of calm in life's storm. I mean, that's really what I'm teaching with the breath work, is how to be beacons of calm, right? How to be so calm that we can make clear decisions with our human mind, because the more stressed we are, the more we mouth breathe, the more we panic, the more reptile we become. Reptile dysfunction, right? Yeah.
Wow. I love that. I've never heard that before, but that's perfect.
Original material.
Nice. Okay. So I feel like this is a good time to transition into this current situation that's happening right now, talking about the stressful situation and how we can use breath work to, like you said, find the calm in the eye of the storm. Because if you watch the news, especially, it's like a shitstorm. It's all negative, try to get you worked up, like all this stuff's going on. But like Viktor Frankl says, you have the power to choose your response to that. Mm-hmm. So you want to go into a little bit about on how we can be using this time to our advantage, not by panicking, but by calming ourselves, improving our skill set.
Yes, absolutely. So you and I, in our conscious coaching communities, we've had the opportunity, we voluntarily went inward, right? And with some of the plant circles I've had the pleasure of sitting in, there's a prayer that I love, and it's, Aho, great spirit of the north, Aho, great spirit of the south, Aho, great spirit of the west, Aho, great spirit of the east, Aho, great spirits of the heavens, Aho, great spirits of the earth. And to the most important direction, the 7th direction, Aho, great spirit of the inward journey. So there's nowhere to go right now but in, right? And that whole transition, the greatest gift that my ex-wife ever gave me was loving alone time with me. That was a very difficult chasm, a dark chasm to go through, right? And I had a choice, right? I could either do the work or I could distract myself and not do the work, right? We don't have the opportunity anymore, right? With this whole Corona shelter in place thing, right? So if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right? That's one of my favorite Henry Ford quotes. And so if you think this is the worst time ever, you're right. You are right. Absolutely. Right. And then I'll offer this. I believe that you believe that. Combined with this powerful phrase, if you say so. I was watching my friend David Robinson, right? He's a professional obstacle course racer. He has a podcast called the GS Nation. And I was watching him transform his body, right? So when we lived together in Southern California before all this craziness, probably like a 170, 168. I watched him go from a lean 168 to 162. And so here, check this out. Crazy, weird, committed, wealthy, right? All wealthy people have those things in common unless you won the lottery, and then you won't be with that money for very long, right? Yep. So here's the weirdo, and I give that as my greatest compliment. Cheers to the weirdos. Cheers to the unreasonable man, right? The reasonable man bends himself to the world. The unreasonable man bends the world to himself. Therefore, all progress resides in the unreasonable man, right? We have the opportunity to be unreasonable, right? Like today's day 21 of my fast. It's unreasonable. There are people calling me and asking me out to dinner and parties where there's food, right? Like, what else am I going to do? So I watched him transform himself. One other thing that I found to be really powerful, watch the movie Groundhog's Day. And then watch it again. If you can find the Harold Ramis's monologue on how he made this movie and what this movie is about. In every setback, find a seed of equal or greater success, Napoleon Hill. It's my favorite line in that whole book, right? I decided to be better as a result of being fired from my dream job, right? That line, Brian, I've lost a lot of sleep over this, but you're not the man to take your team to Afghanistan. It was the best, worst day of my life because I chose. You can choose to make this quarantine work for you. There's no distractions. There's nowhere to go, right? I invite you to use the power of the breath to get into your heart. And if you can't sleep at night, it's a great time to spend some time with your inner child, which you've been avoiding for a long time. That inner child's afraid. It's scared and needs you to hug little, whatever your name is, right? For me, it's little Brian, right? Little Brian's scared. And this time it's different. Scoop that little child up and hold him, and know how beautiful and how precious that little boy is. He misses you, right? And it's a scary time, but this time it's different. I've got this. I know what to do, and be able to listen. Pick up a new hobby, right? You've been meaning to make your website. You've been meaning to get your diet together. Like, what else are you going to do? Make it work for you. You've got this white space. And it wasn't by your doing, right? There's the analogy of the feather, the hammer, and the Mack truck. You ever hear that, Taylor?
I have not.
So when it's time to make a major life change, we can listen to the whispers and the gentle musings of the feather. Brian, you're in a relationship that doesn't serve you. Yeah, but like doing something about it's going to be really uncomfortable, right? That was the feather that I ignored. The hammer to the face. So I'm leading an ice bath and my partner at the time comes outside. And these are people I really care about. I'm trying to make a Wim Hof business out of this in our garage, right? And we're transforming people's lives. Closure to end of life situations, giving people alternative endings to panic attacks, coming together as a tribe, people who are dancing with suicidal thoughts, and finding joy in the ice. Like, we're transforming. And she goes, hey, what are you weirdos up to? And I'm like, thank you. Like, we are weird and it's awesome. But I didn't, there was not like, hey, can I take a picture of you guys? What can I do to help? Obviously, this is important to you. And that hurt, right? That was the hammer to the face. Like, you're going to make fun of me in front of my clients, right? That was a hammer to the face. I'm like, okay, something's really wrong, right? And then the Mack truck was, Brian, I don't have time for your bullshit feelings. I could have listened to the feather, but I didn't. I could have listened to the hammer, but I didn't. I waited until I was slammed sideways by the Mack truck, right? And so along your path, I just ask for permission to be really frank with you, if you're listening, right? I'm going to talk to you in a way that your friends and your family can't, because I really care and I give a shit about you realizing your dreams. Okay. So here we go. You didn't listen to the feather. Okay. You didn't, right? If this quarantine is the worst thing that you've ever experienced, you didn't listen. You didn't listen to the hammer either, right? And this is some tough love. The quarantine is your Mack truck, right? That loop ends. It's going to end. I pray to God that you end the loop that you're on, and to make space for everything that you deserve. It's waiting for you. It's the life sensei holding the door open, and it's offering you that exhilaration. Leave the good life for the great life. That's what's waiting for you in the quarantine, and do it today. What's the littlest, tiniest thing you can do today? Maybe it's 6 breaths when you feel stressed, and then listening to whatever answer comes up. It could be that, right? It could be making dinner with your partner, right? And enjoying it, and you're making music, and then making love at night. Or maybe it's 30 minutes of pillow talk with the person you care about the most, naked pillow talk time. I miss those days, right? And now I will have that again as I make myself ready, right? And using the time in between relationships to forge, who do I need to be to attract the person that I want? That's what I'm working on in this quarantine, right? I've gone and done the inner stuff. There's still stuff there, right? But I did it on my terms, right? And in the future, I want you to be ready. When the rest of the world panics, you know what to do, And as I work with people around their relationships with money specifically, the systems, right? And also the coaching. This is very scary. In the words of Warren Buffett, when everybody is greedy, be fearful. When everybody is fearful, it's time for you to be greedy. And when you take command of your life, your relationship to fear, how you leverage breath to find calm and see more when people see less, you'll be able to be greedy when other people are fearful.
Wow. So I've been talking about this on social media for the past few weeks, like on how we need to be using this opportunity to improve ourselves, to improve our business. And we'll get into the money side of things. But you mentioned be greedy. And I don't necessarily think that it's greed, because I think of greed as like doing everything for your own benefit. Whereas programs like mine, the work that you're doing, the money that we generate is for the benefit of other people, right? So
yeah, so I totally agree. That's just the Warren Buffett quote.
Yes.
Right. I want to make sure I got the words right. But let's talk about the way that I think this works, right? So we've got the starving artist, right? We've got the whole martyr thing. Give, especially if you're a woman, in this time, keep giving until you have nothing left, right? That's what we train our women to do. You're too much, and we train our men that you're never enough, right? So the greatest good for the greatest amount of people, good money in the hands of good people, great things happen, right? And so there's a Jim Rohn quote that I love that this is this beautiful paradox, right? And let's just talk about paradoxes for a second. The coaching relationship and the father that I want to be ultimately, I love you exactly as you are, as we strive for what could be. Both, right? I want to be kind and assertive, right? So just now, when I gave you guys some tough love, it comes from a place of love and unlocking everything that I want you to have, right? I have a bigger vision for you than you have for yourself right now, the dream stretching, right? Kind, right? Without being assertive is manipulative, right? Assertive without kind is cruelty, right? And so the Jim Rohn quote that I love, I will work on me for you if you work on you for me. I want to carry exactly my amount of water. Taylor, I don't want you to carry my water up the pack. I want to carry my own pack. And when I have that reserve capacity in terms of my physical fitness, what else can I do to help you? I'm full up, right? I have plenty of gold, right? Money doesn't solve all your problems, but it certainly solves all your money problems, right? And so if I come from a place of abundance, right, I want to be a wealthy philanthropist. I want to affect the world. And it's hard to do that from the bottom, And so, what if we come with a full cup, that's infinitely overflowing, there's so much more good that we can do if we can leverage money, not as the root of all evil, but as a battery, an energy to affect thank you, Ben Walker, for that analogy. Money as a battery to propel us on our life's mission, right? A totally different thing.
Yeah. So I've talked about this sort of paradoxical selfishness before, about how helping other people actually helps you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's weird. Like, people think, like, you need to work on yourself, which for sure you do. Like, you have to work on yourself, master yourself before you can truly help other people. But you can never just have all the money and all the things in the world and be fulfilled if you're not helping other people.
Totally.
Like, there has to be that deeper purpose behind it.
Money's a measure of value. And like, one of the things that Bledsoe had us do, right? Journal about what you know to be true about money. That's an interesting exercise. We learned a lot, from my parents' parents who grew up in the Great Depression. Money's hard to get to. It doesn't grow on trees, right? And the people that have money are evil. Any of those actually true? In some cases, maybe. Money definitely grows on trees, right? So there's another Jim Rohn quote that I love. Decide to become a millionaire, not for the money, but for the person you must become to attract it. It's a metaphysical journey to become a millionaire. It's a metaphysical journey, to create value, right? And value is created as we solve problems for groups of people. The larger the problems and the larger the number of people, the more wealth we can build. That's all it is.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I feel like we could go on forever, and we didn't even touch on a lot of things that I want to talk about. But we're 90 minutes in, and I don't want to keep you too long. So you want to tell people where they can find you, where they can get your book, and about Breath Fast on Sundays.
Yes. So I'm on Instagram as Fear Sherpa, FearSherpa. Give me a follow. Sharing announcements, and then my Insta stories are interesting. You get to keep track of what this crazy, weird, committed individual is doing on his path towards wealth and helping other people become wealthy. If you're interested in joining us for Breath Fast, so there's some mechanics. There's some guided meditation with my djembe drumming. I'm a novice at that, so bear with that. But it's good enough, right? And then there's an amazing 10-minute period of healing where we come together. So send me a direct message on Instagram, and I'll send you the invite for that. I only have so many seats for that, so let me know. That's my service during the Corona situation we're currently in, right, to help with calm. And then finally, if some of your shelter-in-place downtime, pick up a copy of your Secret Superpower, Tame Fear to Thrive. I wrote it for you. These are the tools and tactics that I earned on the battlefield, and then, coming back to life after being buried in an avalanche. And I'd love to have a conversation with you. So those are the two places. If you go to Amazon, you can type in Brian Muka. It'll come right up. Or you can type in the title, Your Secret Superpower, and get yourself a copy. It'll change things for you, I promise.
Yeah, and if you guys think that you don't need the breathwork practice, first off, that's your ego talking to you. And second, I would invite you to just do it. For whatever reason, why you feel like you don't need it, just try it. Because like my girlfriend Brooke found out, sometimes you don't see the things that you truly need. And so just show up. If you don't like it, you have the power to leave. But just like Brooke found out, you might stay. And you probably will. So guys, I highly recommend giving Brian a follow. Listen to other podcasts that he's been featured on, picking up a copy of his book for sure. And we didn't even dive into everything, but we might do a podcast sometime in the future. So thank you for taking the time out of your day to tell the people about fear, how to use it for their own benefit, how to breathe properly. And that's it. Appreciate you coming on.
It was an honor to be here. And honestly, guys, as you hear me talk, this is how I found meaning to the two greatest setbacks in my life, right? This is what I brought back, right? And suffering stops being suffering the moment we can find meaning. It just becomes pain. And, you're now part of why I had to go through that. I didn't know that at the time. I couldn't see it at the time. And if you're going through something really difficult, please know that this is God or the universe or whatever you believe in purifying you as you dig your oasis. And if you haven't gotten to water yet and you feel like, hey, it's time, there's going to be an equal amount of water for the amount of digging. You're being made ready for it, and trust that it's there. It took me 8 years to start hitting pay dirt, to hit that streak of gold, right? And I hope it takes less time, and I'm going to share with you everything I know, to get you there faster, but you got to show up and do the work, right? Listen to the feathers, respond to the hammers, and holy shit, avoid getting hit by the Mack trucks. I don't recommend that at all. And, I want to be an ally and an asset for you and in your corner. So thank you. Thanks for listening, and congratulations, 90 minutes in. Hopefully we've delivered some value to you that you can actually use. It's one thing to know it. Learning hasn't occurred until behavior has changed. So please apply this and share it.
Boom. Implement this shit, guys. Seriously. All right.